introductions already a little bit. All right. We did the introductions a little bit already, but I'll just repeat. My name is Bob Kozlowski. I'm an engineer and developer in Azure Cloud Infrastructure and Automation. I live in New Jersey. I work in New York. I've worked in financial services IT for more than 30 years, and I'm a longtime member of the Princeton Agility Group. Title of my presentation is Spikes, Improving Outcomes and Reducing Risk. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining spikes themselves because I believe that most or all the people on the call kind of understand what they are. I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 points about the engineering uncertainty that's inherent in stories, a different way to look at spikes for quality boxing versus time boxing, and propose the use of a spike template better than some of the ones we've seen on the internet already. For the record, the usual disclaimer, opinions are my own, including errors. They're based on general reviews of Agile practices and use globally, and what I talk about does not depict or represent any specific company or organization. I would prefer to take questions at the end. I only have 4 slides, so I'm going to move along sprightly, and then if there are questions, I prefer to take them at the end. This presentation reflects my experience and opinions working with Agile coaches in Agile mode for basically the last 7 years. Like I said, I'm not an Agile coach. I'm not a Scrum Master. I'm an engineer. I'm a developer. I am a customer and partner of everyone on the call who's an Agile coach or a Scrum Master. And it's important for me to provide feedback to those people, both within the firm I'm currently working at as a contractor, plus in forums like this, how we can improve Agile processes from the standpoint of engineers and developers, later. Okay. You can see this new slide now, right? Refresher, why have spikes?
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, I'm not going to review the basics of spikes. People can go to this Wikipedia page and read about spikes if they need a refresher on what spikes are. But briefly, spikes are when you have a big question to answer, a problem to solve that future stories depend on, but you don't know how to get there. You have a big hole in your understanding of what you need to do to deliver a customer story or customer value. When you come across that situation in regular stories, you frequently see people sort of under the covers put something like, well, then a miracle occurs, right? And the joke, kind of the joke cartoon that we've all seen if we've been in technical areas for any length of time is this cartoon with the two scientists doing equations on the blackboard. And in the middle of his theory, it says, well, then a miracle occurs. And the other scientist says, well, I think you should be more explicit here in step 2 instead of just going with that. It's kind of a standard cartoon. And you don't see that in stories explicitly, but a lot of developers and engineers make assumptions about how something works or how to solve something, or don't realize that there's a hidden piece or dependency that they haven't thought of when they pointed the story. They don't always think through every step and ask themselves hard questions. Will this actually work? Is this possible? That's how 3-point stories become 7 and, 11-point stories, right? Because you didn't realize that there was a hidden piece there. Spikes create facts in evidence. For example, can system A talk to system B efficiently and securely? If you have subsequent stories that depend on that connectivity working, you can't point those stories or even you can't start or even point them because you don't know what your dependencies are. You have a risk there. So why are spikes not stories? Spikes are not for the normal routine garden variety uncertainty that comes with most stories, right? If you have accurate descriptions of done, if you have meaningful tests, if you have peer review, whether that's code review or requirements review and proper pointing, spikes are not for that garden variety uncertainty that every story has. Spikes are for real gaps where you have a huge hole in your knowledge about how you're going to do something. And the analogy that I use with engineers in all the places that I've worked is that before you build the real bridge, you have to sort of figure out whether you can actually get across the river. So think of someone laying down rocks to get across a river. They need to kind of see that there's some path to get across the river, that all the things they need to do to deliver that story can work, even if they don't know exactly how they're all going to fit together, before they actually build the real bridge, which is the main story. You need to be reasonably sure that there's a way to get to the other side of the river before you get too far out. The risk is that you get halfway across the river, you realize you're in trouble because you encountering something you didn't think was a problem, and then you take a shortcut, right? And that affects your design, that affects the quality of the middle of your story, and have to take a shortcut. So what are the limitations of spikes? Like I said, the meta goal of spikes is to reduce uncertainty, make subsequent stories more predictable, and therefore reduce risk. So the conventional wisdom is that all spikes should be time boxed. Okay. And if you read various books or standard Scrum Master training, they will say, to the extent that they even talk about spikes at all, they'll say, well, spikes should always be time boxed or not point boxed, but time boxed. I'm arguing in this lightning talk that time boxing all spikes, regardless of what they cover or their degree of difficulty or their complexity, can in some cases increase risk, especially when the scrum master or the dev lead or other people in the team are just looking for an out are looking for an outcome instead of what they should be looking for, which is an outcome with specific quality levels, specific gates that make that the outcome of that spike proper, right? Unlike description of done or the standard, as a so and so, I want a such and such so that I can such and such type of clauses for stories, there's no single comprehensive common template for spikes, right? Microsoft does have there's different things that I've seen in different places. I'm trying to call it up here. The little Zoom bar is getting in the way. Microsoft has a technical spike format. It's rather bland and generic. I have a slightly more detailed one at the end of this presentation that we may or may not get to based on the slides and the questions that I've used in the past. But there aren't a lot of templates for spikes like there are for stories. And I don't necessarily know that you need to create a specific JIRA issue type for spikes or anything. There are other ways of dealing with that. So I'm going to propose later a spike template if we have time. But like I said, spikes are ostensibly to reduce risk. But if you're making rushed decisions in a story or in a spike to meet a time box, you may actually be increasing risk, right? And the degree to which that risk is multiplied depends on how heavy or foundational the engineering that you're doing is, right? Um, the more you're building infrastructure or foundational platforms rather than just delivering specific user stories, the larger the long tail impact of a shortcut or a rush decision in your foundational layer that you're building will be. The squads that I've worked in for most of my time on Wall Street frequently have to build big things that have never been built before on planet Earth. They do not exist, especially as firms move to cloud. They have to solve a whole new class of problems that they never had to solve when they were typically working completely on premises. And I've seen it in the past where people don't realize that they were going to encounter a certain type of problem when they took an on-prem process and decided to move it to cloud or to a hybrid model. And you don't want that. You don't want the people to take shortcuts in that process, especially when people are building platforms that have to last another 10 years. So that's what I mean by foundational engineering. And my point there is sort of that spikes become more important the heavier and the more foundational the engineering you're doing gets. So the more structured approach that I sort of propose for spikes allows us to sort of potentially improve the outcome and value of spikes. And this is how I talk about spikes with other engineers at the firms that I work for. I would like people to think about spikes as either being the problem yourself ahead of time. Is that above the line or below the line? Okay. If the thing you have to answer is above the line, right? It's for a really critical piece of foundational engineering. If the thing you have to answer is above the line, really critical foundational piece of engineering, where getting the right answer is more important than anything else, then you have to consider instead of saying that, well, it's going to be 2 days, we're going to give you 2 days for this spike and time boxing it that way. Consider making the spike quality boxed. Okay. Meaning the developer engineer needs to say that they're 95% confident with the solution, or the solution meets specific quality gates, however long it takes. Okay. Nothing's going to take forever, but I never, if I have to choose between shipping low quality code or missing a deadline, I'm always going to choose the latter. I'm happy to miss a deadline if it means I'm not shipping, crappy code. I never want to have a conversation a year after a story or a year after an engineering delivery where someone comes to me and says, "Well, that was a horrible solution you came up with for requirement X a year ago. It's causing us all sorts of problems now." And my response is, "Well, that's the best I could come up with in the 2 days that I had when I was given the time box for the spike." You never want to have that conversation, right? If a developer comes back and says after 2 days, if you decide that you're going to time box a spike, and the developer or the engineer comes back and says, "Well, you know what? I haven't solved the problem yet, or I have a solution, but I'm not completely comfortable with it." What does your squad do? Do you say, "Well, the spike was 2 days. That's it. We're going to take it and go with it just because we have to deliver"? Reconsider that, right? I would argue that there are things above the line and below the line, and things that are above the line, you need to get the right answer. Now, spikes should be subject to peer review, like scientific papers or mathematical proofs. And if we have time to get to the template, I'll be happy to go over how I think about that. Time boxing is better when you're okay with good enough. And that's what I refer to as below the line. Let's suppose you have a case where you just got a new report writing module in for your team's software. You don't know how to use it. The customer has asked for a particular report. Excuse me. They're not too picky about what the report looks like. And you know that you're going to assign one of the devs in the team to it, and they're going to work on a report format using this new module. They have to learn it. But the choice of a report format is not existential for the project or the customer or the client. Like you can go back and fix it later. I call that below the line, and in that case, I think it's okay to go with like time boxing. Okay. My argument is that it's inherent on the dev lead and potentially scrum masters to identify the cases where time boxing a spike is going to do you more harm in the long run than good. Spikes should be infrequent enough where that not time boxing them should not affect your velocity, right? If spikes are really common, if you're doing spikes like every sprint, then you may actually work in an architecture team or a research team. You may not work in an agile development squad. And I would also make the point that if you don't trust someone enough to allow them to work on something that's not time boxed, then and still deliver a good result, then maybe what are they doing in your squad? Right? If you don't have that level of trust with someone. Okay. So those are my kind of three basic points in this presentation. How am I doing on time, Fernando or Arseny? Do we have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, you have another 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. So again, assertion one is developers don't always think through how to cross the river every step when they write a story, and spikes are intended to reduce the risk of that problem. Okay. Assertion two is that time boxing spikes can sometimes increase risk instead of decrease risk, right? When you put someone in a position where they have to deliver an answer by a certain date, and they may be forced to pick any answer instead of the right answer. And the third assertion is, in order to solve that problem, consider the idea that you're going to have spikes be confidence level boxed instead of time boxed. Like put the developer or engineer on the spot and ask them what it will take to get to a 95% confidence level that system A can talk to system B, however long that takes, right? So I mentioned that I had a template, but I'm first going to stop here and see if there are any quick questions. Okay. I'll stay on the call for a little while later, or I'll look at the chat notes later. This is the Spike template that I came up with that I have used occasionally. I believe that some things you can decide in that template, and you can put this in Jira or put it in a Word doc or whatever you want. This is just more of a listing of the things that are important. Is the spike above the line or below the line? Is the thing that the spike needs to find out important enough where you need the right answer regardless of time? Or is it something where there's a good enough answer now? What's the downstream impact of not solving it? What are the requirements of
Bob,
the
are you
solution?
sharing a screen?
Yeah,
We don't
you
see
should
it.
still be able to see my screen, no?
No,
I
Oh,
see it.
I
I
you
think
see
do?
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
see.
maybe I don't see it.
Okay. Well, it's on the Spike template. And I will post in the in my GitHub homepage here, github.com/bobk. I'll read it out for people who can't see it at the screen in the moment. Go to github.com/bobk and go under the Jira presentations repo, and you'll see, I'll post this later or tomorrow, and you'll see the actual, you can download it and look at it for yourself. But show your work. Going back to the Spike template, and I realize I'm coming up on time. What are the required characteristics of the solution? I realize that dev leads and scrum masters just want to hear that a problem was solved, but I think it's incumbent upon you guys to make sure that if the question is above the line, that you know that the solution the developer is handing you as DoD meets additional quality characteristics that mean you're getting a good answer that's going to last you a long time instead of something that just lets them close the ticket. And the last point is there's just some other thoughts on here, but I think I'm coming out on time so people can kind of read some of these other thoughts on spikes later. And that is my presentation.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
And I will stop sharing.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes for questions, right?
I think we have 15 minutes was
Already.
over.
Okay.
Um,
So then we can continue, and next speaker will be you, Fernando.
okay, so give me 1 second to share. Oops.
Fernando, are you still there?
I'm here. I'm here. Give me 1 second. I'm trying something, the presentation. If I'm able to get it started. Okay, I'm not gonna waste more time. I'm gonna share. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Now we got it.
Yes, we can
Yeah.
see.
But you don't see me. Now,
No screen. Fernando?
yes. Do you see me? Because I don't see, I lost my.
We see the screen, your screen, Agile change revisited beyond Shu-Ha-Ri.
Okay. But you see my face, or you don't see?
We see a picture, just
The younger
profile picture.
version.
Okay. Uh,
But we hear you. Very nice.
Yeah.
sorry about this. I was trying something new, and sometimes new things do not work as expected. I wanted you to see. Okay. No, my stop working. Oh,
Now we can see. Oh, we lost you again.
okay. Yeah, this is the other camera. It's better than nothing. And you see my screen.
Yes.
I do.
So I want to share a few things that I've learned helping teams adopt agile practices for almost 20 years now. Now, I don't know if you hear about this Shu-Ha-Ri. This Shu-Ha-Ri is a concept that was introduced by Jim Highsmith, one of the creators of the Agile Manifesto, back early in the day. And he was practicing martial arts, Aikido. So he imported this concept from martial arts. This Shu-Ha-Ri, he said that, well, if it worked for martial arts and it worked for over hundreds of years for martial arts, why can't we use it for Scrum? What can be wrong? So a lot of organizations have adopted this concept that consists in first, as the beginners, teach them the practices, fundamentals, martial arts. They teach them how to stand, where to breathe, when to exhale, when they throw any punch. The high is the mid-level, is abide by the rule. You're not learning, you are repeating. You are repeating the rules over and over until it comes natural to you. When it comes natural, you are the expert. You don't have to think about the rules. The rules come natural to you. So this is the concept that was introduced to teach Scrum from the beginning. It's a lot of people following the same movements, exactly the same as you see on the right. These people are in the half, mid-level. I'm gonna skip the videos. So we see these beginners just learning the basic moves. Then people repeating exactly the same moves. Large organizations, that's what they want. They want all the teams following exactly the same process. Now, this is good for martial arts, but it has been used to teach tennis, golf, many other technical disciplines. When I had tennis instructions back in the early 80s, late 70s, this is how I learned how to play tennis. So I was told that I couldn't finish, I had to finish all the strokes with a racket perpendicular to the net. If I didn't do this, at the end of a stroke, the instructor will call the attention, do it again, over and over again. That's okay. But then I was lucky enough to see a game between Villas, that we see here on this picture, and John McEnroe. And I also was able to see Bjorn Borg and other famous tennis players. And what I found is that no one, not even once, they finish a stroke with a racket perpendicular to the net. No one followed the rules. So yeah, that was intriguing, and that led me to stop my instruction with this professor. Now, by the way, Vilas, the one on the left, he won the Australia Open twice, not just one, twice. And he was rejected when he was a junior because he was considered that he didn't have a good grip on the racket. He had the thumb in the wrong position. So he would have never given a yellow belt in martial arts. Now, it's not that I'm smart, it's a person smarter than I, Timothy Galwell, also found this in the mid-70s. He found that the champions were not following the rules that were teaching everyone. He was a Harvard student, psychology student, and he was the coach of the Harvard tennis team. So he came up with a different approach to teach tennis. Like he called it the inner game. And he was very successful So he published another book, The Inner Game of Work. He became one of the founders of a discipline called executive coaching. And this executive coaching, of course, coaching follows a different approach that is Shu-Ha-Ri. This approach is about learning by doing, based on feedback. You grab the rocket, whatever you want, whatever is comfortable to you, but you get feedback. Did you hit the ball or you didn't? Did it work? And if it worked, you celebrate and do more of that. You repeat the same steps. The approach is about embrace any challenge as an opportunity for learning and create new habits. You don't fight bad habits. You don't try to push the thumb to be in the right position. You try to hit the ball. So this approach for change or for learning is similar to what we see on the right, representative of lean change. Is changing by small experiments, adapting to the experiments that the team needs to solve their pain points on the organization, continuous planning and continuous execution of these experiments. This is in contrast of the big change. Is teach everybody the practices. Now, starting tomorrow, you are all Scrum teams. Now you are all have to deliver as if you were black belts. Now there is a space for everything, but if we are running a transformation, we are still missing a key element. Is that the purpose of a transformation is not really to get everybody following the rules. The purpose is to have everybody getting the results that you are expecting. And for that, and to get a successful transformation, people have to become believers. So, we need to identify who are the champions, who are the people who evaluate the change as positive and who are actively endorsing the change in order to get the transformation started. So there are two dimensions that this person here, Tendai Vicky, and in his presentation at the Worldwide Executive Coaching Symposium last year, he considered that we need to evaluate these two dimensions. The evaluation of change, do they see change as a good, positive thing? And are they actively participating? We need to know who's who, where everybody stands. Because people evaluating negatively and you ask them to participate, they may comply, depending on the company culture, or not. But you start looking, they will revert to what they were doing before. So you need to identify the champions, who are the persons who buy in the change and they are actively contributing to the success. People who resist, you don't want them to comply because you're amplifying their complaints. They will sabotage change. You want first to get them to evaluate the change in a positive way, to become endorsers or at least supporters of change. And I'm going to briefly tell you what we can do. But change in an organization follows this flywheel principle. Flywheel is a heavy wheel, but it's difficult to get it moving initially. But once it moves, it will have, because of the inertia, it will keep moving. And that's what we want in any transformation. But to do that, we need to first apply some initial external force we need to gain momentum. And if we follow the rules of physics, momentum is velocity by mass. And by velocity, we mean a consistent action. We need to run consistent experiments. We need to run consistent coaching. And the mass, in this case, takes the shape of visible results. And we have an impact on the company. And the combination of this velocity, consistent action, and visible results is what generates momentum, which is a form of energy, kinetic energy. And to get flow, we need to defeat that resistance. And for any experiment, you can tabulate this and see velocity. What are the elements that will generate the velocity? And what is the mass? How are we going to measure? What's going to be visible? What is valuable? Because if you generate valuable, they are meaningless. Many organizations measure transformation based on people trained. People trained is not a result. It will not generate mass. Now, items delivered, MVP delivered in a shorter time, yeah, that generates mass. And of course, the organizational culture has an important consideration for any change. So these are the 3 types of culture types by Westrom. Yeah, by looking at these definitions, you say, I don't want to work in a pathological organization, but pathological power-oriented organizations can be very successful, like Apple in the early days. Everybody followed what Steve Jobs was doing, was saying. No one could contradict Steve Jobs. If you have a visionary in the organization, a person in the organization, well, you first try to convince that visionary. You try to convince that Steve Jobs into the buy-in. Bureaucratic organizations, these are typically regulated industries. They have a lot of processes. Failure to follow the process is punished. So you first have to work with the people who define and approve those processes, typically a PMO. And generative performance-oriented, it looks simpler because it's by default highly collaborative, which is what we want in Scrum teams, to be highly collaborative, and also highly collaborative across functions. But if you don't have a defined purpose, a clear purpose and alignment, they could be all over the place. But with generative organizations, it's easier to introduce lean change, small experiments, because people will embrace short tests, to remove their pain points.
Oh, excuse me, Fernando, we already have 16 minutes.
I'm done with the 15 minutes. I'm done with time, Arseny?
No, it's already 16 minutes. How much time do you need?
Oh, this is the last slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's who's who in that buy-in matrix. You have to nurture champions and build these visible, valuable, and verifiable results. And by storytelling is how you grow the engagements. So this is what will move the flywheel of change in the team and in the organization. This is all. Any questions?
Thank you, Fernando. Any questions? No questions? Okay. We can go on.
Oh, sorry, quick question.
Yeah,
Could you go
sure.
back? Can you hear me okay or no?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, can you go back? There's maybe like 6 slides ago.
Let me see which one.
I don't know the name of it. Sorry.
What
If you could,
the buy-in matrix?
Aaron, what's the
yeah, right
question?
there, the buy-in matrix. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Um,
I'll give you another version of that one.
yep. How have you found what approaches have you taken in that classification process, right? Like to figure out where people fall into. I mean, it obviously the champions is pretty easy, but
Mhm.
I've because I've never thought about it like this, but it's great. How do you how do you figure out the difference between sort of the opponents resist, supporters endorse? Because to me that one feels a lot grayer.
Oh yeah, of course.
Just
And I
obviously.
was not always able to do it
Okay,
because
good.
I was hired to do something that were already created. And when I joined, I noticed that they were prisoners. They were following the motions, but they were doing waterfall in iterations. The stories were not real stories. Things were not really getting done at the end of the sprint. So my approach was to make them run small experiments, make them create one good story. Let's try one good story. Let's see what happens. So I is it by doing it and looking at the impact of what they doing, where I got them to endorse and finally understand until something really clicks. So I was not hoping that something will click in their brains by repeating that 1,000 times, like in Shu-Ha-Ri. I was actively coaching them to run those experiments. For leaders, when I have individual meeting with the leaders, it was typical that people were sponsors of change, but they were not participating. So they're sponsors, they're leaders, they want you to run the change. But my approach is that I want to turn them into champions. So I want to make them, for example, make presentations to show the good results. Because when someone in the organization makes that presentation, it has a much bigger impact than some outsider like a consultant like myself. All right. Arseny, I don't know if we have more time.
No, probably not. Yeah,
No.
sorry, we have to go on.
Yeah.
Lazzat, please, you'll be next speaker.
Do we have another speaker? Because right now I'm driving home. I'll be home in next 5 minutes.
Oh, that's okay.
If
Yeah,
anyone,
Yeah.
yeah, they can go. Thank you.
I could go next.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not able
All right.
to stop.
Shall I go?
Yes. Can you try sharing? I'm not able to. Here I found. Yeah, you can share now.
All right, let's see how we go. Share. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. My topic was the product owner as a role inside the organization, working with a Scrum Master. And I got to this for a bunch of reasons, but I'll explain after the 15 minutes. Okay, so the concept is there's a product owner, and I put it through ChatGPT. Am I allowed to say that? and I tried to have a conversation with the artificial intelligence to find out what the kind of normative things would be relevant to a product owner. The idea is to deepen my experience. I have actually worked with product owners, and in a recent job that I had, I was very impressed where a manager who was working on the technical operations side became very successful as a product owner because she got it. Okay, so there are 6 points to ponder. One is product owner obviously owns the product, not just an administrator of ranking things in the backlog and keeping track of user stories. Create value from within the team, also managing the return on investment, making sure that not only does the team know what it needs to do and produces it, but also stays in a format so it doesn't bankrupt the company. The coaching, leadership, workflow improvements are also part of the job. Iterate product configuration based on customer user feedback. That's a pretty typical thing. And integral part of the team. That's not always the case. Real power delegated from the organization and the knowledge of how it works. I added that the idea being the product owner becomes the representative of the organization for the team. Okay, one of the questions I had to myself was, how many product owners are there in the United States and globally? So the query I put in through the AI prompt came up with 6,140 in America and 300,000 globally. I don't know why that's so important, but I just thought it would be interesting to give a sense of scale. Down below, you can see the answers for the Scrum Master. The official count was supposed to come from things like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's enough of that. Okay. Also part of the introduction was a simplified view, so you get a linear sense of what Agile Scrum works like. You have the vision and the charter. Those usually start off in the organizational level. The product owner creates the backlog in coordination with the team, and there you can see the rest of the steps through the linear experience. This is the simplified view. I came up with a more complex view. This came from the Scrum organization, and this came from the SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, where you can see the product owner is now kind of, shall we say, at the level of the basic team level work. All right, but what I wanted to say about this was that the Scrum Alliance has the view that product owners manage the product backlog. We've already agreed that. Set priorities based on stakeholder needs, business goals, and work closely with developers. Okay, now that when I got these responses back from ChatGPT and I talked to a couple other people, I'm not happy with this part here where it says Agile fails, but this is the way the text put together. Agile fails most often because the product owner and the Scrum Master are treated as administrators, not leaders. In other words, they become requirement scribes and they become meeting schedulers. And the idea is they don't really understand what the product is, and therefore they're kind of held off to one side. I don't view this as an Agile fail so much as a kind of organizational system fail. All right, the product owner's real job, we've already discussed, owns the outcomes, has the authority to say no. This is the key element here. A little bit like what Robert was saying earlier about the idea of the time box versus the quality box, you might say. If the team has a certain rhythm, produces at a certain velocity, and the CEO comes up the next day and says, okay, you got to do everything else instead. The product owner has the ability to say no, unless you can remove, it's like a zero-sum game. If you want me to do your thing, the CEO says, that's fine. The product owner will say, okay, that means we're not doing these other things, right? In other words, the idea is to achieve a certain level of sustainability within the team, not people work around the clock. So to get to this is a balance of the stakeholders versus the product vision. If the PO can't decide, Agile can't adapt. That's where I'm okay. Now the Scrum Master's real job is enabling learning in the flow, coaches the team and the leadership. In other words, it's not only a lateral discussion, but it's also uphill, downhill within the organization. If you take the hierarchical view, remove systemic impediments, not just blockers. Systemic impediment can be we're understaffed, we need more people. A blocker might be something like I need to get a permission to open a new account or something. The Scrum Master would also turn retrospective into real organizational change. We could talk about that in the questions if you like. Modern Agile works through fast feedback, incremental learning, continuous backlog refinement with the whole team. That sounds good, but we're still working, if we're working on sprints or on a Kanban basis where you set up a user story and you are accomplishing a certain work within a certain time box, that sort of thing has to develop its own rhythm or its own style. As we've discussed, Fernando just mentioned it, small slices of work for rapid validation, decisions driven by customer feedback, not necessarily what you planned at the beginning is what you're doing today. So working software is a learning tool, not just a deliverable. That goes with the idea of there's never a final product that goes with the final version of the product. Everything's the basis for change at some future time. So self-management, transparency are non-negotiable. The product owner encourages the team to decide how the work is done, maintains a backlog, progress makes risks visible, and produces metrics to show the outcomes and the quality, not necessarily just velocity. And that would mean something like we did X number of lines of code, or we did X number of user stories, but the product still doesn't work. I'm sure you've had experience where the project was reported as green, 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 and the day before delivery goes red. Not an Agile response. Agile doesn't fail in regulated industry. This part of it came out of the query from ChatGPT because I was talking mostly about healthcare and pharmaceutical type stuff. These products come out of regulated industries, and the concept seems to be that authority, the distribution of authority, what Fernando was saying too about the Shu-Ha-Ri arrangement, you can get locked into the re part where you're just following the rules and you don't necessarily have enough flexibility to get things done. So regulation doesn't block Agile, fear-based governance does. And the idea is that by shifting power to the product owner and the Scrum Master, you avoid Agile becoming a reporting veneer. So I asked GPT to give me a one-sentence summary that we could all take away from this. So Agile succeeds when product owners maximize value, Scrum Masters maximize learning within the team, and Agile fails when organizations refuse to give the product owner and the Scrum Masters proper authority. Okay, that's what I had to say. How did I do for time?
You're on time. Thank you. Thank you, Peretz.
Okay, great. So any questions, comments? I'd be glad to stop sharing and discuss if you like. Okay.
Guys, any questions?
And I'll be glad to share the slide deck. I had a couple of additional slides about detailed definitions of product owner type work from different organizations, but I think you well and truly got the point.
Yeah,
I
Peretz,
have one last thing to say, Fernando. The one last thing to say is product owners have a tendency to, my experience has been, product owners have a tendency to try and hide from the technical stuff. They try not to understand that, and they frequently get lost in the requirement stuff. So this characterization of requirements scribe is something we need to encourage product owners to evolve beyond. Now I'm done. Sorry, Fernando. Didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
just one comment. I fully agree with what you shown in the presentation. And also that's what was the intention of the roles in the Scrum Guide. But unfortunately, I see that many large organizations, they are not implementing that. They are using so, and you can tell by how Scrum Masters are being paid. If the Scrum Master were hired to be real change agents with power to change the processes across the organization, it should be higher level, well paid, more experience. And same with product owners. Sometimes the organizations, especially large organizations, they hire POs that are BAs that follow what someone else is asking them to do.
Yeah.
And that's very unfortunate.
Okay. So that's done. Lazzat, are you ready to present?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Asani, I didn't mean to step on your
That's okay. No problem.
management role here.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, Lazzat, you can.
All right. Thank you so much. As I mentioned before, I didn't prepare any slides because it's just purely my experience. And speaking of product owners, I've been with a company where product owner acted as a product owner and a scrum master. So yeah, it happens. So a little bit about my background. I started my career as a QA engineer, but even back then, I was helping my product owner actually facilitate some of the Scrum ceremonies, supporting the team. And over time, I realized that I really enjoyed people challenges more than just the testing software. And that time, I decided that I want to leave this job and leave the QA job and kind of invest on me, in myself, on my education. I started learning coaching, business psychology, and then I was looking into Scrum Master roles. How can I become a Scrum Master officially? And obviously, when you do the research about how to become a Scrum Master, everyone says get a certification. And this is what I did. I got my certification, and it was last year, at the beginning of the last year, I decided to do SAFe. I did a lot of research, and the recent most popular was SAFe at that time, and I did SAFe 6. And I started confidently applying for jobs on LinkedIn, hoping that I will start getting calls. But I guess since COVID, things changed, and I haven't been on job market since COVID. And nothing happened, honestly. Nothing, like cold applies didn't work at all. No calls, no interviews, just silence. And that experience actually forced me to do my research, like what's happening with job market, what's like, how do people find jobs in these days, or what's happening with the Scrum Master roles. And I quickly realized that lots of people are being laid off, especially Scrum Masters. And at that point, I didn't want to lose my hope because I still wanted to I still wanted to get this job, and I realized maybe I need more experience on my resume. Maybe my resume is not right. And that's when I decided to join a Scrum Master bootcamp, and I start looking for internship opportunities. Meanwhile, when I did my research, like there is lots of tips, right? You need to update your LinkedIn, you need to update your headline, you need to start writing posts, grow your connection, be visible. And I did all that steps, honestly. I did everything. And I was still applying to jobs. I was still reaching out to recruiters, to hiring managers. Obviously, not most of them will answer you right away. They will say, "Yeah, we'll keep you in mind," and that's it. And then after a while, I start losing hopes. But I thought, how about I start reaching out to Scrum Masters, and I started growing my Scrum Master connection, and I started inviting them to virtual coffee to find out about their experience, how do they like their role, etc., etc. But I just want to quickly mention, if you guys are looking on the job market or something like that, please don't reach out and tell people like, "Hey, I need a job," because people like to talk about themselves. And my approach was like, "Can you share your experience with me? I really want to connect with you," etc., etc. And this is actually how I met Arseny as well, because I reach out to him. I say, "Hey, do you want to have a virtual coffee with me? I would like to know your experience." And most of the Scrum Masters, some of them they declined, or some of them they didn't answer me, and some of them actually say, "Yeah, let's meet up." And this is and one of the Scrum Masters actually was in Australia. And we managed to have a meeting with her, even though we have like 15 hours apart time zone. And she shared her insights. Honestly, I did these meetings and coffee chats with a Scrum Master just to give myself some kind of motivation and to stay on the track to my goal to get this job. And those meetings actually really supported me and really helped me. And that Scrum Master from Australia, she shared that she also interviewed Scrum Masters, and she asked me, "Hey, do you want me to share with you a Scrum Master interview questions?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" And we kept in touch with her. Meanwhile, I am very hot on job market. I'm applying everywhere. I am networking with people, posting LinkedIn posts a couple times weekly, and I started working with Agile coach because I wanted to find out what's wrong. Like, can you take a look at my resume? Maybe something wrong, because I still don't receive any calls. I'm just receiving automated rejections, and that's it. And we rewrite my resume. We did a couple of the session with her where she interviewed with me, and where she prepared me kind of for the interviews. And after a while, actually, that Scrum Master from Australia, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, our company is expanding to US and we need a Scrum Master, and I want to refer to you." And I was like, it was the opportunity that came out of nowhere. But honestly, if I say out of nowhere, it's not true. I did so much. I did so many steps in order to get visible or to get that referral. And she referred me. And guess what? She was my first interviewer. She interviewed me at the first stage. And then I had an interview with the manager and the CEO. And this is how I got my offer. But I want to say that on my journey, especially not on my journey only, but on the market journey, I know it's tough out there. And sometimes it can be very emotionally draining. You lose hope, you lose confidence in yourself. And I think that stages are all normal as long as you know what you want, as long as you know what kind of role are you pursuing, because this is very important. And my key takeaways from this, from my experience, I would say that you don't know what will work for you. You can try everything, cold applies, reaching out to managers, reaching out personally to people, doing networking. But as long as you're doing right steps, something will work for you, definitely. Like when I tried everything on LinkedIn that everyone is suggesting, at that time, it felt like nothing is working. But that's not true. If I did connection with on networking on the LinkedIn with that person, and I reached out to the Scrum Masters, it did work. At the end, LinkedIn did work. A connection on the LinkedIn is very important. Growing your LinkedIn is very important. So yeah, that's kind of my journey. I don't know if you, if anyone has a question
Oh, it's a
or
great
comment.
story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank
I
you
hope you
for
didn't go
listening.
to Australia for interview, right?
What is that?
You didn't go to interview to Australia for interview, right?
Oh no, it was just no. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for listening.
Question: How long did it take from beginning to end?
So yeah. So I started in January, but I wasn't applying consistently because I realized, as I said, that maybe my resume is not enough, and I sign up for bootcamp, I sign up for internship, but fully I started searching from end of the March and August. Basically, I think like 5 or 6 months it took me, but I took it as a full-time job. Looking for a job is a full-time job, honestly, which you don't get paid, but it is what it is because this is all little research that you do. It takes a lot of time. Like you need to rewrite your resume almost every single time when you're applying to a new job, and then I would reach out to the manager. I will try to find the manager and say, "Hey, I just applied. Just a quick, heads up." And it takes time. And you think like, "Oh, it's just a few clicks," but it's like a full-time job.
Lazzat, I have a question.
Yeah.
It goes with what Fernando asked about how much time it took. You started off as a quality assurance engineer, you said?
That's correct. Yeah.
And I hope you were able to keep that going while you were able to do the training and the that's not the point. The question I was going to share with you was I had a similar kind of experience of trying to do the migration from
Yeah.
software quality assurance type work, became a certified Scrum Master, did the Scrum Alliance course, that sort of thing. At the time, I was working for Accenture, and now it comes the part I don't know, but here's the numbers. I ended up on the bench at Accenture, finished a project, and was looking for another project. And I thought, okay, now's the time to make the transition to Scrum Master. I had 37 applications outstanding for projects throughout the country. Got zip. No one said, no, you're a QA person. We want somebody who has already been a Scrum Master. Did you come across that?
This is what I came across while I was applying because I didn't receive any calls, right? It was 0 calls, 0 nothing, no reaction. This is where I realized I need more experience. That's why I go ahead and start my bootcamp. I start my internship where there is a company called Voicen in Canada. They offer internship, all kind of internship for the Scrum Master, all the roles because it's an AI startup. And I did my internship there. And I included everything on my resume. I showed that I have an internship. And because I worked, when I was doing QA, I did also, I helped my PO with the Scrum ceremonies. I also included that as well. But I came, you know what, my how do I say it? my presentation was like, I came from QA team. So I came from the team and I know how to support the team because I was on that side. So that was kind of how I was presenting myself. And honestly, with this job market evolving, I feel like everything gets to that level where you are like in a personal level with someone, like you know someone from the company or you are in a good connection with that company. So, I mean, this is purely my experience. I don't know, maybe someone can find a job through cold apply because I couldn't for the 6 months.
Well, assuming we're amongst friends here,
Yeah.
I think part of my problem had to do with, shall we say, my length of experience became a code
Mhm.
for a kind of age discrimination, which
Yeah.
they figured he already knows everything, so
Yeah.
there's not much he can do to help us out because he's not already a Scrum Master, right?
Oh,
He hasn't already been in the role of. I know I know how it's supposed to work, but I
yeah.
haven't actually had the opportunity to make it work yet,
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
direct sense.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah.
I wish you every success in this and
Thank you.
continue going from strength to strength on it. Are you using much of your SAFe experience, the Scaled Agile framework?
No, honestly, no, because the company that I'm working is a hybrid. It's like waterfall slash agile Scrum, because our project itself very pre-scoped, like it's waterfall, but we deliver it in an agile way. So yeah, so I'm not using SAFe. That's why I need to renew actually my certification, and probably I'll go just with a Scrum Alliance or
Ah,
whatever out there.
well, keeping the SAFe Agilist credential, I feel is a useful thing to have too.
Mm-hmm.
The two
Okay.
go in parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you can use scrum.org. That
Yeah.
it never expires. You don't have to
Yeah.
pay
Oh,
renewal every year.
yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We are on time.
Almost 7.
Yeah.
Fernando, I forgot to ask if we're recording this.
Yes, we were recording, and I'm going to stop recording now.